Start the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Efendim, herkese merhabalar. Welcome everyone. Even though this is for the first time we do this webinar format, so I don't see you, you do see us. But it's kind of complicated. Every day we discover another part of Zoom. Today we're very happy and excited to initiate a new collaboration within the framework of TÜSİAD, the Netherlands Task Force, in collaboration with the Netherlands Innovation Network. Did I say it right? Yes. And the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. And we're going to start talking on a series of the possibilities how Turkish and the Dutch ecosystem can learn from each other when it comes to innovation. While talking about innovation, we are facing our own issues here. So we have a technical issue. That's the reason why we stayed a bit late. But our keynote, our guest speaker, Jaap, he is connecting like me from the Netherlands. And somehow he's a bit more unlucky than I am, because his audio is not compatible with the system. But anyway, so we will use a very innovative technique to circumvent this problem. Thank you, Jaap, for being with us today. We do appreciate your time. And Rory and Necla, it's always a pleasure seeing you. Okay, I think that will be a good initial introduction, I would say, for the series. Today, we're going to talk about general framework, what's going on, especially in the Netherlands when it comes to innovation. And I will very kindly invite Rory and Necla to maybe kind of introduce yourself, even though everybody knows you in our communities, but still would be nice. And then to get into the conversation. Rory?
Okay, yes, my name is Rory Nuyens. I work as innovation attaché for the Netherlands Innovation Network at the Dutch Consul General here in Istanbul. So my main duties are to connect Dutch and Turkish knowledge institutions on the basis of their R&D, research and development programs, but also R&D intensive companies, Dutch and Turkish companies that are willing to do R&D together, either in a bilateral way or in the EU programs such as Horizon Europe or Eureka or anything like that. So we also have good contacts with the Turkish governmental institutions like TÜBİTAK, but also the Turkish Ministry of Industry and Technology. So that in short a little bit about our work. And I give the floor now to Necla to explain a little bit about what she does.
Thanks, Rory. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Necla Günay. I'm the director of Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, Turkey and the Balkans, based here at the Dutch Consulate in Istanbul. We are an operational unit of Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs. We are helping companies settle down their business in the Netherlands.
It's so nice to have you both here. Okay, so how shall we go? Jaap, shall we try to hear your voice?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can. Okay. So if Rory can share his screen.
Yeah, you have to close the audio of your computer, please.
So I did.
Okay.
So, dear Turkish friends, I promised to tell you something about innovation policy in the Netherlands. The story is, let's say I will keep the story quite simple, but I think it's a good story. It's a story about the triple helix. And the picture you see is in fact a picture of the Netherlands in 1582 when we're just some 16 years into the 18 years war with the Spanish Habsburg Empire. And in 1648, the Dutch provinces got their independence. So it's looking a little bit different now, but you see the Netherlands is a lot of water. Of course, it's a delta of some 3 enormous rivers and a real a water country. In fact, we are 1/3 below sea level already now, but still we feel safe. And that is mainly because of the public-private partnership system that we installed already in the Middle Ages to fight the water. Now, you keep that in mind. The next one, Roy, please.
Yes.
Can you go to the next one?
I did.
Okay. We don't see it. Maybe, Rory, you can put it in the presentation format.
Yeah.
Full screen format after you share it.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, thank you. This is a story I will not try to tell completely, but to focus, let's say, we focus on the year 1980, when we started with innovation policy in the Netherlands. The Dutch economy had ran out of steam in these times. We tried for 10 years. We tried a defensive industry policy by supporting our businesses on world markets, and we did not succeed in that. So we had to think of something new. At the time, we thought we are doing very good scientific research in the Netherlands, but we don't make use of it. So we try to connect academy and business enterprise. And it, let's say it took us 20 years to do that properly. That means a whole generation of trying to build programs between industry, science, and applied science. And in 20 years, we learned to do it. And as well, we learned to at least to promote this policy with academia and really to get them interested in it, because in about 1980, academia was still very much aloof in its ivory tower, with much of scientific success, but hardly any use made of it by Dutch business enterprise. We got through that in 20 years, and in that time we really learned that when you stimulate the use of science, it's even good for the quality of science. And this is something that before that nobody believed. We learned the hard way how to build programs between academia, applied science, and business enterprise. And since then, we built a lot of programs, and we built a lot of relations together. And in the meantime, after that, after the year 2000, when we really learned and knew the trick, we stepped it up. And we went over to a top sector policy, that is to scale up these programs, public-private programs, to scale them up and to organize them in a proper way. Also, we learned how to deal with, for instance, intellectual property, which is always a very difficult question in these such programs. We learned to do that, and being very successful in this, we also stepped it up in another way. We learned to make use of the normal societal challenges that came up. And nowadays, this is our new policy, mission-driven innovation policy, aiming at the societal challenges that come in the sphere of security, in the sphere of health, in the sphere of sustainable energy, climate, you know them all. So that's what we started out to do, and it grew from building these small programs in the 1980s. And this brings us also to the key enabling technologies that you will be interested in this series of workshops. In fact, when you look at the key enabling technologies, we see some 50 key enabling technologies in the Netherlands. I will come to that. I will come to that later. Now, these days we also started to invest a lot more in innovation and in knowledge. Now, formerly we did not invest so much because, for instance, of a financial crisis that we had around 2010, and we tried to do better with the money we had. But nowadays we start to invest billions in innovation and knowledge. The next one, please, Roy, if you can.
Do you see it?
Not yet.
I'll do it again.
That's it. Thank you. So we see that being a little bit out of business in the 1980s, we started on the way back, and let us say the Netherlands is on top of things again. Of course, still high on the gross domestic production per capita. On top of competitiveness, on top of innovation, and with a very high labor productivity. Of course, being the most open economy in the world, in some indexes next to Singapore, and still with a very high science impact score. Some of these figures are a little bit outdated, should be updated, but these figures still are rather actual. The next one, please, Rory.
Okay, I will do it.
Yeah. So we see that the investment in R&D in the Netherlands, for instance, in R&D in the Netherlands, is still rather modest, not very high above the average in Europe, but it is growing, and it is growing as a result of our public-private partnership programs, and it will rise, and it will rise probably next year to our main target, and the main target for our current economy is 2.5% of gross domestic product. Now, with this 20 billion investment for the next 4 years, we will reach a figure of about 1% of GDP on public R&D. Of course, we like to generate more private R&D with that. So I think we will get, in a few years, we will be somewhere around 2.6%. Some other things you see in this, of course, the patent figures and the scientific figures are really rather good, and it shows that we do scientific development together with innovative development, and that is the model, the PPP model in the Netherlands. And the next one, please, Rory.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. This is just to show that there are different tracks in our policy. There's a generic track for instance, fiscal measures to promote R&D in business enterprise. There is, of course, the capital track, and there is the specific track, and that's the top sector policy and the public-private partnership track. And with this, we try to reach this top 5 position in the Global Competitive Index. Well, we reached it. We did not yet reach this 2.5% goal for R&D in the Netherlands, but we will in a few years. I'm pretty sure about that. And the total volume for investment is above our target already for some years. The next one, please, Rory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this shows what this public-private partnership between business enterprise, knowledge institutions, and government is all about. It's about the joint programming of research for set goals, and nowadays, of course, also set to the societal missions that we have. We have human capital agenda, of course, also to get enough engineers. That's one thing about Turkey that is so interesting for us. It's so full of engineers, and that's a very good thing, of course. The regulation, we are an over-regulated country. We always have been, and we have most of the time. We have good regulations. Sometimes we have too good regulations. So we are trying to sort that out as well. The international aspect, what we did and what we are doing right now in the top sector policy is fine, but we can do so much better if we really cooperate internationally. We do that already within the EU framework, and that is a very important thing for us, and it brings us an enormous positive return. But on top of that, we also like to make the case for bilateral cooperation. We have some 18,000 cooperation projects with Germany within the EU, for instance, but still Germany says to us, we also want to cooperate bilaterally with you. So, in fact, last year we made a pact, an innovation pact together with Germany, and we are going to try to invest in that bilaterally. We don't have the means for that at the moment, but we are searching for them. Then on top of that, of course, there's regional cooperation within the Netherlands. It may be a small country, but it exists of 12 provinces that are doing things for themselves, and we like to take some more synergy out of that. The next one, please, Rory. Yep. So this new policy, this mission-oriented policy to societal approach to societal challenges and economic opportunities. Well, I told you about it already. Plus and I already gave some insight in that, work on the key enabling technologies. Our biggest top sector, which I just showed in the former screen, is the high-tech systems and materials sector. And key enabling technologies are mostly working out in that sector, apart, of course, from for instance, biotechnology, which is in the life science sector, and chemical technologies, which is in the chemistry top section. But for instance, in ICT, in artificial intelligence, in photonics, in quantum, nano, and biotech, in advanced materials, we are really investing a lot now. Also through this new growth fund of 20 billion for the next 5 years. Now, what I wanted to tell you about the key enabling technologies is in the next screen, but to follow this one, we are, of course, I pointed out the importance of the framework, the European framework programs to us. These programs have grown enormously in the last 20 years, and they are very important for us. And also they're opened up, of course, for associated countries and even for third countries. And this is still a difficult thing, but we are trying to open that up, and that is an important thing too. We do not wish to have cooperation only with the European countries, because there is so much more in the rest of the world. I will show you a bit of that later. And the case for change, the new National Growth Fund, which will open up possibilities, maybe also to cooperate internationally, but we have to sort that out in the coming months as well. The next one, please, Roy. So we distinguish some 50 key technologies. The scores of the Netherlands that we sorted out in 2018 was that in 41 we are in the top 3 within the European Union on for instance, citations and results. I can show you in the next one that's rather difficult to read. But it shows, for instance, in this area of the key enabling technology area of, for instance, engineering and fabrication technologies, and for instance in imaging technology, we see very high scores for the Netherlands institutes and companies, and the same goes for nanotechnologies, and the same goes for digital technologies. And why is that? In all these areas, since about 1980, we had enormous public-private partnership programs on R&D in these sectors, and this shows the results of that. And you can compare, for instance, the citation indexes for ASML. You compare it with Massachusetts Institute of Technology in nano manufacturing. Then you see how incredibly high the scores are, and a couple of Dutch universities working together with them as well. So this is an important thing. This in fact shows the results of this public-private partnership approach. But this would be a good thing to study too. And what I always the same goes.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. The same goes, for instance, for Brazil. And you can say, well, Brazil is at zero growth now and has political problems. And that's when we say, okay, then we step forward because we're not building a partnership for 1 year or for 2 years only. We are there to build long-term cooperation. And that is what we are interested in. And that is, for instance, what we are doing since some 25 years with Japan now. And with Japan, you need a lot of patience, but now we are really in a position of complete, a very trustworthy cooperation. So that is an important thing for us.
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. Innovation. You need to invest in small and medium-sized enterprises, or you keep it at that, or you try to promote innovation for all businesses. Well, let's say in all these dilemmas, we say, well, nearly all, we say you must do both, except for the last one. We will do an EU strategic autonomy, which of course is a very interesting thing in these times, or you strive to open strategic autonomy. And the answer to the last question is the Netherlands strives to reach open strategic autonomy, so cooperate with all like-minded countries in the sphere of innovation, technology, and science. So that is what my presentation is about. In fact, I could go into it a lot deeper, but not in the short time that we have. And I must say that I have to leave you about 5 minutes to on my watch 5 minutes to 4, and it's an hour later with you, I think, because I need to do something on the current state visit of the President of India in the Netherlands now. So 5 to 4, 5 to 5 on your watches. I really need to leave you, but that leaves at least some 20 minutes for a discussion and for questions from your side. And I hope that it was possible to understand a little bit of my presentation.
It was perfect. Thank you very much.
And then it's always very nice, of course, to improvise. This is rather a good thing to do, I think.
Innovative ways to sort it out. I will invite the audience, if there are any, I don't know, we don't see them, to write in the chat box their questions. But in the meantime, while waiting for these questions, I might invite Necla or Rory if you have any questions to stimulate the conversation.
Yes, maybe Rory, I can start. Hi, Jaap. This is Necla from Istanbul. I have a. Can you? Yeah, you can hear me, I guess. Yeah, I have. It was a nice presentation. Thank you for that. I have a question regarding the growth fund you mentioned in your presentation. Could you please give us some examples of the growth fund and how the National Growth Fund works?
Yes. In fact, this is a rather enormous amount of money for some distinguished programs for the coming years. In fact, the ministry is not completely in the driving seat because these propositions that come from, of course, business enterprise and knowledge institutes and consortia, they are being screened by an independent committee on the quality of the science and the quality of the valorization of science. And nowadays also on the international aspect. This was not, we were not so far on the first round, but now in the second round we were. And for instance, our innovation attachés, like Rory, were busy also in screening these propositions. These days, the second round will show its results, and this means really millions for these big programs. For instance, one in the first round that also may be very successful in the second round, that is on quantum technology. In the second round, there's a big program coming in on artificial intelligence as well. There's a lot of ecological programs that are proposed, but one or two will probably be honored. And well, this is a new scheme for us, and it's a lot of new money, very important. This will bring us to a higher level. I showed you, well, we started out in the 1980s with really small programs of about, let's say, 10 million guilders, and the guilder is half a euro at that time for 4 years, and that is rather small, but we were building them up. We scaled up with the top sectors, and now the scaling up goes exponentially higher with this new growth fund. So it is really a massive instrument to work on. And so let's say, we in our ministry, we waited for years for such a big impulse for our innovation capacity. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, it does. Maybe I can add one other question if I'm not sure if the audiences would like to raise.
May I just ask you a question, before we lose you up? Money is everywhere. So everybody is printing money. So much money around the world. Numbers lose their value now. We're talking about trillions of dollars, the market cap of the companies, blah, blah. How do you measure the impact? How do you measure the impact of your program? So what is the methodology you use for the money spent?
The question of methodology is rather difficult for me because I don't do it myself. But when I was a program manager for the national programs in the end of the 1990s and the beginning of the new millennium, we did this very thoroughly, and we followed what happened. We followed what happened, and we saw each year what came out of these programs. And there is a best practice in the Netherlands, which is rather costly. I must say, but a part of our National Science Foundation, the technological part, that is producing every year the results of the programs that started 5 years ago and that started 10 years ago. And that produces, and that has a special methodology. And if you would be interested, you could go to TTW, a part of NWO, and ask for their methodology. But that is a very interesting one. And then you see how, well, I use the term exponentially, the exponential growth of the valorization of science when you organize the coincidence of getting together business enterprise and academia. And that is a wonderful figure, in fact. So their methodology, I would advise to everybody to use that. But it's very costly, that's for sure. But it's very good to keep an eye on how things go. It's also necessary because with these programs that we started, we have these programs for at least some 8 years. But after 5 years, we evaluate how they are going along, and if they are starting to be successful, then you invest for another period. So that is also a very good thing. But for that, you really need to do an evaluation. And the difficult thing, also a politically difficult thing, is when you invest in innovation and in innovation cooperation, then you will not see the real results, not even in 5 years. You will maybe start to see them in 10 years. And the real thing starts to happen after 20 years. And we can see that because we, in our metals program from the end of the 1980s, this produced, in fact, in 20 years, the material of which Airbuses are built. And that is some 20 years later. So that's a laminate, of course, of polymers and of metals. And that was made in that program, for instance. It takes some 20 years. We think normally it will take 20 or 25 years for science to sometimes reach the market. What we want to do is to step up the pace and to quicken it and to halve this period. And if we can do it in 10 years, then we really did a very good job. To show this, you really need to measurement, and you really need to know what is going on. But it's a painstaking process, but for what you ask for, and a very good question indeed, you need a methodology. And the methodology was found out in all these years of trying and failing and trying and failing, and we did. And so after 20 years, we got through with academia, and we showed it because we started to reach the market, even with scientific research.
Right. For the policymakers, the decision makers, the difficulty is to keep the policies intact for a long time. And for the experts, is to trust building. That's why I'm sure your methodologies change over time, but each time you learned. And I think that's, Necla, may I have one more question before we lose Yav? If I ask you to compare the EU or the Netherlands approach with the US and China, it's a big question, I know. But how confident are we with the approach we choose in Europe?
I'm not sure if I understood the question.
When it comes to innovation, the commercialization of innovation, I think US and China are a bit different in their methodology, in their approach than Europe. And as an outsider, I'm curious about how to compare them.
it's a difficult thing that we are wrestling with at the moment, of course. And how far can we go with China at the moment? We need to look at our economic security, of course. We need to think of our strategic autonomy. But I can give you an example. 2 years ago, I think maybe it was before the COVID-19, but yes, it was before. We started out on an innovation mission to China on the subject of photonics. And photonics is also a thing that we invested in public-private partnerships since the 1990s. And then it came out that there were at least two paths and two themes that we would do in China, and one of them was 5G in photonics. And we decided not to go on with that one because that would be too risky. But we did the other, and of course we can do that. And in matters of life sciences, we do cooperation with China. On chemicals, we do cooperation with China. On agri-food, we do a lot. Even we keep on doing that. With the United States, it's also difficult because we have our schemes from the government side, but they don't do that from their side. The only thing to do that is to do it through the states. So with the state of Massachusetts, we have good cooperation. With the state of Michigan, for instance, on automotive, that's quite clear. We do have a good cooperation. With California, we have a good cooperation. And of course, they have one of the best agri-science in University of California, Davis, and we have it in Wageningen. So there's a lot to be reached there. But you do that through the states rather than through the federal level. That's also difficult. Under the former administration, things were a lot more difficult than they are now, for instance.
Yeah,
sorry to say.
Yeah, concerning the time, we do have some questions from the audience.
Yeah, I see some questions. How can Turkish companies gain access to clusters in the Netherlands? There's one answer. Rory Nuijens.
That's me. And Nesla, of course, as well, as NFIA colleague.
Yes, of course. Of course. I can say, and it's very good that you are here together, that our cooperation between the innovation attaches and the NFIA around the world is getting better at the moment, and that is also because of the new strategy of the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, and the strategy is more pointed to quality than to quantity. It used to be quantity, get in all money you can, get in all businesses you can, and now it's about quality. It should really add to our national ecosystem, in fact, to get foreign companies to the Netherlands. So you better answer that question, Rory. But if we go on to the next one from Niyazi Güneş Atay, can you please specify the level of Turkish innovation investments in the Netherlands? No, I couldn't, but I'm sure that Nesla can. Can you, Nesla?
Before we go to the answers, Yap, I know you have to leave in 2-3 minutes time. Necla and Rory and myself, we can answer those questions even after you're gone, because we don't want to rush. We would like to properly thank you for your presence with us. Rory, is there any other question before Yap leaves us?
From my side or from your side?
From your side, from anything you would like to raise with Yap that we should hear, questions or comments?
Nathan, I did prepare some questions, but they have almost all been answered by Jaap, so I don't have any questions left.
But let's say you give them my details, Rory, and any question you want to pose on Dutch innovation policy and our international cooperation, you can give to me anyway. But of course, include Rory in that, because we are one of a kind.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I also should say that I have a vested interest. My daughter goes to Wageningen University, and all the agri-food tech and everything, the things you say, it really resonates. You know, the humanity needs new approach. Humanity needs innovation. It's fundamental. It's really fundamental. We face amazing risks going forward. So that's why your work, your policies is really, really important for all of us. And more we see collaboration between Turkish ecosystem and the Dutch ecosystem. Of course, this is our role to play. And that's why we initiated this program together with Rory and Necla, hopefully to benefit. So it was great to start the series with you. We got the big picture. We have so many questions, of course, but you know they will come at a later stage. So we have to leave you to the Indian delegation now.
Great. Well, Rory, we had a last slide that in fact we didn't show.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Remember?
Yeah. Do you want me to? Okay, I will show it. Just 1 minute.
Well, never mind. You can spread. Please, can you distribute? Okay, that's the one. Yes. It comes from my big book of Turkish poetry, and it's only the beginning of this poem. But really, if it wouldn't be for initiatives like yours, like TÜSİAD, probably we would never have seen each other's faces. And this is what is our innovation attaché network about, to get connected. And I'm very happy that we got connected, and especially happy that we could solve it in this improvised way. And I hope that it will raise some questions with you. I'm always there to answer them. Rory is always there to answer them. And together, Turkey and the Netherlands, we can be strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaap.
So whenever you have to leave, you can leave, Jaap. Thank you very much for all your kind words and explanations. And while you're going, I will invite Necla and Rory to answer the questions you delegated them to answer, if they are willing to, about the innovation work of Turkish companies in the Netherlands, if any, and how much. Bye-bye, Jaap.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.